Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of The Mad Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, it's more about the bits and bobs around, like, Real Salt Lake. There's another couple of things to talk about in college football before my actual preseason preview for each and every team. As you guys have known over the last couple of years, I like to dedicate one show each week before the season begins for each team. And it will be the same this year. I'm just going to do it alphabetically this year, because why not? And so that's how that's going to work out. I'm still doing research. I'm still looking into stuff, reading different opinion pieces from journalists that I actually trust and actually, you know, their opinion actually matters and they're not just hot take artists, right? So that's what's going to be on the horizon here next month, I'm thinking, is when I'm going to get those done and out the door, because the season starts end of August. So we are like a month and a half away from college football. That's pretty exciting. And then a month after that, it's hockey and basketball. So it's a good time to be a sports fan here in Utah. So thank you all so much for being here. As always, you can find me on the socials, well, at least a couple of them, Facebook and Instagram. That is the Mad Cave Podcast. You can find me on YouTube, the Mad Cave Podcast. If you want to reach me, you can reach me via email. That is madcavepod@gmail.com. And I think that pretty much covers the gamut of my socials and how you can contact me. So there you go. Thank you all so much for being here again. You are, each and every one of you, awesome persons, awesome people for listening every week and sharing it around. Last week was a really successful week for the show, so I just want to thank you all for being here for that and for the engagement on the social media. There was a lot of engagement, especially on that Barrett Hayton post I made. I'm glad everybody has an opinion on Barrett Hayton. I'm glad that people were comfortable enough to share that with me. There are a few that could have done a little bit better, but it's sports, and that was like the one hot take I've made in a long time. So there you go. It was fun. It really was. So thank you for the engagement on the social media posts here recently, and let's dive into things. So first, let's talk about Real Salt Lake. So Real Salt Lake has a couple of players that are piquing the interest of European clubs, not just Mexican clubs or South American clubs, European clubs. So that's pretty exciting, and it's the two that I've talked about before on this program a couple of months ago before the World Cup started, and it's Diego Luna for one, and it's Zavier Gozo for the other. Diego Luna's been doing his thing here in Salt Lake for a couple of years now. He burst onto the U.S. men's national team scene with the broken nose and staying on the pitch with the broken nose and playing better and earning the, if not trust, admiration of then, I'm going to say then coach, because I don't think he's going to extend after the World Cup, but then coach Mauricio Pochettino. Unfortunately, he didn't make the cut. I think he should have, over Alejandro Zendejas, maybe over Haji Wright. I think he deserved a spot on the World Cup squad, but it didn't happen. However, there has been a bid for Diego Luna's services from a Mexican club, but it was only to the tune, and I know you're going to roll your eyes when I say only, but it was only to the tune of around $3 million. The rumored price tag for Diego Luna for Real Salt Lake to take you seriously in getting him is around $9 million. So it was almost less than a third of what he is viewed as worthy of by Real Salt Lake's front office. And just like in hockey with Puckpedia, there is a website called Transfermarkt where it shows basically how the world views how much a player is worth. And so Diego Luna is on there, and it's around $9 million. So the outward appearance of Diego Luna and the inward appearance of Diego Luna is roughly the same. And so with Diego Luna costing that much, it would take a European squad to pry him from Real Salt Lake, because the other squads just wouldn't have what it takes. So looking at what Diego Luna can bring your team, what Diego Luna does for Real Salt Lake, he's only 22. It's $9 million. He is linked to a couple of European squads. Right now, he was approached by, I think it was Club America. I could be wrong there. It might have been Monterrey. But it's really exciting stuff for Diego Luna. I mean, he is interested a lot of clubs. The other one, Zavier Gozo, he is around $7 million on Gozo. He meaning, the president of, basically it's the president of Real Salt Lake operations. Schmid. Yes, Schmid. Again, I apologize for not knowing his name off the top of my head. There's a lot of names to remember. It's Kurt Schmid, the president of operations or the sporting director, however you want to call it, of Real Salt Lake. Apparently there have been bids on both players, but for Zavier Gozo, he's even younger. He's like 18, 19 years old, and he's scoring at a pretty good clip. Again, it is in MLS, so take it with a grain of salt there, maybe even a boulder of salt. But big clubs like Aston Villa in the Premier League are interested in Zavier Gozo. He's been linked to Atletico Madrid, which is like the third best club in La Liga behind Real Madrid and FC Barcelona. So those are two really big clubs, and there are even more that are interested in the services of Zavier Gozo. So that's pretty darn cool. That means Olympique Lyon, which is a rather large club in France, and TSG Hoffenheim, 1899 Hoffenheim, that is in the Bundesliga. That is Germany. There's also been interest from Red Bull Salzburg and KRC Genk. KRC Genk is probably the biggest club in Belgian soccer. So, as you can tell, just from those names, pretty darn good. Pretty darn good interest for one young Zavier Gozo. Now, these interests have been in May, so nothing really recently, other than what we've had with Diego Luna and the teams that are interested in him. But it's really cool. It's really cool seeing that Real Salt Lake is developing talent and that they're not a team like the LA Galaxy or Inter Miami where they have to go out and purchase players to become better. They can rely on their academy to be able to bring these guys up and to make them into really good players. So I love it. I really do. It's nice to see MLS, and I hate saying this, but it's nice to seeing Real Salt Lake in the MLS being run well. I almost swallowed my tongue there, but they're being run well at the moment. So, yes, it is awesome. It's great. If you want to see a fun team in MLS, look at Real Salt Lake. They really are fun. They're fun to watch. They're fast. It's a long... they play basically the entire field or pitch, if you'd rather, and it's just fun. It really is. It's a lot like watching the Utah Mammoth and how I expect to be watching the Utah Jazz here. They're just fun to watch. So if you can catch them while they still have Diego Luna and Zavier Gozo, please do, because I don't think these guys are very long for the MLS and Real Salt Lake. But I just wanted to bring that up. There wasn't much coverage on it, obviously, because who would cover the MLS when the World freaking Cup is going on? Well, I will. There you go. I filled the gap that wasn't really a gap. Another thing I want to bring up is Bill Connolly of ESPN and his cohorts there, Heather Dinich, who I have a love-hate relationship reading her content. Sometimes it's really well-sourced and well-researched. Other times it's drivel, much like this program. But this one was really interesting. So ESPN did an article about the best player to wear each number in the history of college football. So there is a number on there that I am sure you know that I am pretty protective of. That's the number 8 at BYU. I love Steve Young. Probably my favorite player to ever go through BYU. I wasn't even alive when he was there, but definitely one of my favorite players to go through there. He wasn't even mentioned for the number 8. And I get it. The other names that were mentioned on there, Davey O'Brien, there's an award named after him. He was a Heisman Trophy winner, unanimous All-American. He is the one that they selected, so I don't have any qualms with that. The other names on there, Marcus Mariota was one of the most underwhelming Heisman Trophy winners in history. The other one, Lamar Jackson, yeah. I mean, it was Lamar Jackson. When you win a Heisman at Louisville in this day and age, yeah, you deserve to have your name mentioned. But the other one is Julio Jones of Alabama. It's just because he was at Alabama. I would put Steve Young there. I really would. Steve Young was that guy. The only reason he didn't win the Heisman is because he Played at BYU. Okay, fine. That's not the reason why. It was Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie was the reason why Steve Young didn't win the Heisman. But still, that's one of the qualms I have. But they do have Ty Detmer being the best player to ever wear number 14. And in college, that's true. He held multiple records for many years for passing yards, passing touchdowns, career passing yards, career passing touchdowns. And the only other names on there are Sam Bradford, Vinny Testaverde, and Eric Berry. So, yeah, not many of the greats have worn number 14, but Ty Detmer was one of them. The University of Utah had an honorable mention at number 69. It is their current offensive line coach, Jordan Gross. I wholeheartedly agree with that. That dude was a monster, and nobody was getting past him. Period. End of story. And the only other name mentioned was Utah State at number 71. Merlin Olsen, you know, the guy that has the field named after him. He was an Outland Trophy winner, which means he was the best offensive lineman in the year that he won it. Two-time All-American, two-time All-Conference, and he was in the Utah State All-Century Footballs team, along with the College Football Hall of Fame. He was also the first National Football Foundation scholar athlete to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, and he was the first Utah State player to be drafted in the first round of the NFL Draft. And I think I am pretty safe in the assumption that he's the only Utah State player to be drafted in the first round of the NFL Draft. Holy Moses, so many drafts. But was Jordan Love first round? Let me double check myself. Was he a first round pick? He was a first round pick. Okay, so it was him and Merlin Olsen. So there we go. But Merlin Olsen, summa cum laude in 1962. President of the Honor Society. I mean, the list of awards for this guy goes on and on and on and on and on. The only name that I think would be even close to him, and not by much, is Tony Baselli. He played at USC. He was one of the best linemen to ever go to USC, as well as in the NFL. Hall of Fame guy, so that's the only other guy that might come close. But I thought that was a really cool article that they did. They haven't really done this one in a while. I seem to remember they did it like in the early aughts, like, you know, because turn of the century and all that stuff, but not really since then. So it's a fun article. There's a lot to quibble with. Obviously, when you do an article like this, you're going to be leaving names off of there like Steve Young. But a fun article to read. So kudos to ESPN. Almost swallowed my tongue on that one as well. But yeah, just really good stuff. I thought this article was really fun to read. It really was. It also gives you nostalgia looking back at some of these guys like Carson Palmer, Deion Sanders, Darren McFadden. You know, so yeah. A really cool article, I think, from ESPN that I wanted to bring up. And lastly here, I guess, not even really lastly, but the next thing up is the University of Utah was mentioned as having one of the most dynamic quarterback rooms in the country, and I agree. With Bird Ficklin and obviously Devin Dampier there, I mean, you can't really do better as a 1-2 punch in college football. In all honesty, if Bird Ficklin can begin to throw the ball and they trust him to throw the ball more in his packages that they're going to run out for him, because he's a talent you don't just leave on the bench. You're going to run him out there for plays. If he can throw the ball more accurately and they trust him to, look out. Utah's offense is going to be one of the most dynamic in the country. Like, truly. With Wayshawn Parker, Devin Dampier, you got Bird Ficklin back there, and then you've got the kid coming in from Utah State who was a fantastic receiver there. I mean, it's just this team is being overlooked, and we all know what happens when this team gets overlooked. So I'm not going to overlook the Utes. I have them squarely in fourth right now in my power rankings for the Big 12. Right now, gun to my head for the top four, it'd be Texas Tech, far and away, best team. They proved it last season, and they just reloaded this past offseason. BYU at a distant number 2, and then Houston at number 3, and Utah at number 4, with Oklahoma State and Arizona being close behind. But that's really how I have the Big 12 right now. Utah to BYU in that 2-4, interchangeable for me. Interchangeable. Any of those teams can end up in the Big 12 championship game against Texas Tech easily this season. But I just wanted to bring up that Utah does have one of the most dynamic quarterback rooms in the country, because they do. Between Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin, you could do worse in your quarterback room. You really could. So kudos there for Utah on that. And lastly here, I just want to talk about the Utah Mammoth. They matched Barrett Hayton's offer sheet. Almost $5 million for a 3-center. That's a lot of money. And it's a lot of money for a guy who made a ton of boneheaded mistakes last season. And he was second on the team in penalty minutes. And he's not a fighter. He's not a guy that's going to go to the mat for his teammates. He's not a guy that's going to be doing fisticuffs. He's not going to get 5-minute majors. He's not going to get 10-minute game misconducts. He's just making boneheaded plays time after time. And I've brought it up before. I'll bring it up again. That game against Carolina, the Utah Mammoth were up 3 goals with like 3 minutes left to play. I think it was 4. His penalty keyed their comeback and lost Utah to the game. So it's boneheaded plays like that. And it was a boneheaded play because it was a high stick or a hook, I can't remember, in the offensive zone. You just don't do that. So second on the team in penalty minutes, 54 minutes he spent in the sin bin. Almost an entire game missed due to penalty minutes. The only guy that was ahead of him was Jack McBain, but you expect that from Jack McBain because he's an enforcer. He's going to stick up for his teammates. Barrett Hayton, not so much. So that's one reason why I didn't like the re-signing. Another reason why is Utah ostensibly has one of the best pipelines in the NHL right now. T. Jaginla, Caleb Desnoyers, Gabe Smith, Ben McCartney, Artyom Duda, Maverick Lamoureux, Dmitry Simashev, Michael Hrabal. The list goes on and on here. So when you re-sign a guy like Barrett Hayton for a 1-year deal where you cannot trade him, you can't. He is on your team from the time you match that offer sheet until July 1 of 2027. Barrett Hayton is a member of the Utah Mammoth. There's nothing they can do with his contract or with him other than make him a healthy scratch. So if and when he gets outperformed by a Caleb Desnoyers, a T. Jaginla, etc., what are you going to do with him? You can't really stick him on the fourth line. The fourth line is your energy line. It's your enforcer line. It's the line that stops momentum of the other team after they score a goal. You throw them out there to be like, all right, let's slam the brakes here. And he's not that kind of player either. You got Kevin Stenlund for that role, Brandon Tanev, Liam O'Brien, even Michael Carcone or Kyler Yamamoto I would rather have out there than Barrett Hayton. Because I know the majority of those guys aren't going to take a stupid penalty. Liam O'Brien showed last year he could slam the brakes on the emotion and just not fall for the goading and the taunting. Now, the Washington Capitals game towards the end of the season notwithstanding, the rest of the team did a really good job of that as well. So, re-signing Barrett Hayton takes away the opportunity for these younger guys to really showcase what they can do. To really stake their claim that, yeah, I'm ready for the NHL. We all know T. Jaginla is ready for the NHL. He just is. But if you have a Barrett Hayton on your roster with that contract, how do you justify scratching $5 million a night? You can't. And so guys who give potentially a greater effort, who know their role and fulfill it to the best of their ability, like a Brandon Tanev, he gets the healthy scratch as opposed to Barrett Hayton. Because how do you look at your owner and say, yeah, the guy you're paying $5 million, he's over there in the seats eating some popcorn on his phone. How do you do that? How do you look Ryan Smith and say, yeah, we're doing that? So that's a problem. Another problem I have with it. The last problem I have with it is he had more than his fair share of goalie interference calls that took goals away from Utah in key moments in key games. So when you look at that, he takes goals away. He doesn't really play on the penalty kill, and when he was on the power play really struggled. Really struggled. Not entirely Barrett Hayton's fault, though. When Logan Cooley was on there, he's just a more dynamic player. It's just it's apples and oranges. You can't really do that. That's not a fair comparison to either player. So that's not what I'm doing. But once he was replaced, once there was a player on there that was a little bit more dynamic on the puck, that was a little bit more willing to take players on 1v1, that's when the power play really opened up at the beginning of the season and the end of the season. But that is just more of a testament to Logan Cooley than it is to any lacking that Barrett Hayton had. But it's still another knock on Barrett Hayton because the team got better without him. When he got injured in those last 15, 16 games of the season, that's when Utah went on a tear to really lock up that wild card 1 position. Again, Just everything you look at with Barrett Hayton is just like Utah's better off without him. And even listening to Bill Armstrong talk about why he matched the offer sheet and what he said was, we know how other teams around the league value him, and so we decided to match the offer sheet. I'm paraphrasing, but that is essentially what he said. That's not really a ringing endorsement for the guy. If other teams value him so highly, why didn't you trade him? Why didn't you get that value in return? That's my question. Now, I really do want to eat crow, like I did with Alexander Kerfoot last year. I want to eat crow with Barrett Hayton this year. I want him to play all 82 games. I want him to score 20 goals. I want him to have 30 assists, have a 50-point season, and then go out and get paid in another potentially weaker free agent class. I would love nothing more than to eat a 12-course meal of crow when it comes to Barrett Hayton. I just don't see it happening. He fell off a cliff last year in his development. He really did. Other guys just played better. And when a guy who has played wing for the most part of his career in Nick Schmaltz at the NHL level outperforms you at your primary position, that's a testament to how good Nick Schmaltz is at the sport of hockey. So that's part of it. But it's also kind of an indictment on you. And when you go 5th overall in the draft, there's more expected of you than being a 3 center. So that's why I have my qualms against Barrett Hayton. Now, there have been wonderful responses to my post, and one of them I want to highlight where the commenter said it allows a softer landing spot for the young guys. It extends the on-ramp for them. So if they do get into trouble, they do, maybe there's a little stunt in their development or their growth, you do have Barrett Hayton there as a fallback. I didn't really think about that because, as you all know, I'm more of the all gas, no brakes, get the young guys in there, come what may with the mistakes, let's just do it. That's how I view talent and all that stuff. If the talent's there, the talent will show out, even if there are mistakes. But that is a good way of looking at it. It extends the runway for the young guys to be able to take off. If something happens, maybe they take a knock, give them a little bit of an extra time to heal up from it, and you're not just throwing them right back out there next game to possibly get the injury more exacerbated. So that was a really good comment that stopped and made me think, okay, now I can see the wisdom in that. So that was really welcome. That was a welcome way for me to look at what the thinking behind bringing back a player like Barrett Hayton for $5 million could really do. So I do appreciate that comment a lot. So that is a good way of looking at it. Yeah, he does the dirty stuff really well. He gets into the corner. He fights for the puck. He does that. He holds up play on the forecheck relatively well. But again, for $5 million, you can get two players essentially that can do the same thing. So that's why I was against the Barrett Hayton re-signing. Nothing against him as a person. It's just, or a teammate. It's just that's how I see it. So there you go. That's really all I have as far as sports goes right now in the state of Utah. Obviously, dog days of summer are upon us. We're almost halfway through July, and then going into August, just dog days of summer. So keep it tuned here for anything that comes up when it comes to Utah sports. Mo Bamba was recently signed by the Jazz, or re-signed, if you want to say it that way. More center depth. I think he's going to be up and down from the G League again. I don't see him as a regular, but the Jazz's roster is coming into shape, and it's going to be an exciting season for the Jazz. I'm looking forward to covering that one. So there we go. Now on to video games. Palworld, let's say the more grown-up version of Pokemon, the game that is fighting against Pokemon in trademark and copyright court. It has officially launched 1.0, happened this past Friday, and I have been playing the ever-loving goodness out of it. From the time it was in alpha and beta up until now, I have almost 300 hours in the game. It's a fantastically fun game. Now, with the release of 1.0, they have cemented some decisions that I really appreciate. First, there are more settlements for you to go to purchase supplies and to get additional quests, to get more experience and all of that stuff. I really appreciate that. There's more story attached to the game now. Instead of you having to go seek out all these little hidden bits and bobs around the game, they're more in your face with it. You talk to NPCs and they explain what's going on, And the grind. During alpha and beta of this game, the grind was insane. They have lessened it to a very good degree. In the past, you would have to catch 12 of a certain species of PAL to get the full experience, I guess, quota from that PAL. They have shrunk that down to 5, and they've also added in that it improves your stats when you do that. And you get something called a Mamog effigy, where basically you submit it to an altar and you get enhanced movement speed. And it's really nice. So the updates that they made to the game for the official full launch, and you can get it on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. It's coming to Nintendo Switch as well. It's a really good quality of life update. And the grind for materials to be able to build your base is much less. There's a research station where you can improve the stats of your pals at the base for when they're working. That has been lessened as well as far as the material needed to get that research done. And the combat has been improved. In the past, when you did combat, you could not really command your pal to attack the same target as you. You can now. It's just a simple button click, and there you go. So this game, back when I first reviewed it, it was a buy it. It is still a buy it. It is a fantastic crafting, survival, creature collection, and battling game. It is third-person view, so the camera is behind you over your shoulder, and it's a game that I encourage everyone to play. Whether you grew up playing Pokemon or not, this is a really fun game. And it's different from Pokemon because you can kill the pals to get materials for yourself to create armor and weapons. And you can also, let's just say, harvest them as well to be able to do that. There's breeding. There's a whole slew of things you can do in this game. It is fantastically fun. It is a direction that some Pokemon fans have wanted the Pokemon Company to take the game, a more adult version for those of us that are adults now, or at least are the age of adults. I wouldn't really call myself an adult, but at that age. And so this is one that I think everyone should play. It is a little bit of a time sink still, even with all of the improvements and quality of life updates. It's still a little bit of a grind, but it's a game that I encourage everyone to play, to look into, and to just enjoy, because the pals themselves are adorable. They're adorable. They're cool. There's a pal for everyone. Just like there's a favorite Pokemon for everyone, there is going to be a favorite pal for everyone. I haven't really decided on what my favorite pal is, but at the moment, it's a pal called Bushi. Bushi. It's a fire-type pal, which falls in line with my favorite Pokemon, Arcanine. So it's just fun. I don't really have anything else to say other than it's just fun. It is a grind. It can get frustrating, but you can change the settings on your game to make it go faster, to make you feel a little bit more invincible, just so that you can have more fun. It's just something I really encourage everyone to pick up and play at some point. So there you go. That's my review of Palworld 1.0. Go out and get it. Have fun with it. It is less than the $70 AAA games that we have coming out now by a pretty large margin. And it is on sale for the Steam Summer Sale Fest, as well as for hitting 1.0. So if you were looking to pick it up, pick it up. But that is everything I have for you guys this week. Thank you all so much for being here, as well as for all of the interaction on the social media. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave.